Joy is in the air as the year wraps up. Everybody loves the holiday season. It's full of good spirits and gift giving, which is why GitHub is joining in on the fun with their most recent. GitHub is now going to start charging a fee if you're refusing to use GitHub? Normally, you charge fees when people use your service, not when they avoid using your service, especially when the service has been neglected for years and is falling apart. Y'all might have seen that video Primogen posted a few days ago showcasing the worst code ever shipped to prod. I tried to avoid tooling on that much because I don't like just making fun of people's bad code where I can avoid it. When this was just about the bad code in GitHub Actions, that was one thing. If this was more about the bad practices, patterns, and overall experience of GitHub Actions, that might be worth talking about. But for some reason, when I complain about GitHub's lack of quality control, people get mad at me. Hopefully now we can agree that GitHub's on a bad death spirally path, because I've not seen a single person earnestly defending these changes. This is so hilariously bad. GitHub made a bad platform with GitHub Actions, shipped bad code to make it actually work, and now they're charging you for daring to look elsewhere. Insanity. I can't believe this is real. When this was first leaked to me a few days ago, I was hoping it was just like a rumor, not this. And I really do not think they'd be as egregious as they are, especially at that price. Although 0.2 cents per minute might not sound like much, that's 12 cents an hour or $86+ per month, depending on how you measure it. That is a crazy fee to charge for somebody choosing to not use your service. That's compute that I'm sending elsewhere, and half the bill's being paid to GitHub, depending on the prices you're paying, especially if you're using one of the companies that I work with, like Blacksmith or Depot. I do need to make something very clear, though. Neither Blacksmith nor Depot are helping with this video. They have not sponsored me for this particular video in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, there is some bias to account for because I like these companies, I work with them, I've invested in both of them, but this is not about any of that. I have way more money in Microsoft. I just want to complain about GitHub. And before we go further, I want to make this very clear. Nobody is paying me to talk about this. Well, nobody except for today's sponsor. People ask me a lot of questions about T3 chat, but there's one in particular that we get nonstop. Where's the mobile app? Well, I have some awesome news for you guys. It's coming super soon, but I also have an interesting thing to add, which is that we're not the ones building it directly. Wait, what? We're all great devs. Why would we not be building it ourselves? Well, it turns out making good mobile apps is really hard. And while I could go and hire some really great engineers to get us up and running where we want, once you have the app in a good working state, having those engineers full-time might not be the best decision for you and your team. Or if you already have an existing mobile app, especially if it's React Native, hiring a bunch of experts to dig you out of a small performance rut might not be the best use of your money, time, and energy, especially if you're trying to hire these people full-time. This is why I love my friends over at Infinite Red. I've talked about these guys a bunch before, and you'll probably keep hearing about them because the team is awesome. I work with them all of the time. Jamin's become one of my closest friends, and he helps run things over at Infinite Red. So when it came time for us to really take the mobile app seriously, they were the first ones we hit up, and we ended up deciding to go with them. Yes, you heard it here first. The T3 Chat app will happen, and it's going to be built by Infinite Red. This is the team I trust to build my mobile apps, and I'm far from the only one who thinks this. Everybody from Starbucks to Amazon has worked with Infinite Red to make their mobile experiences as good as possible. Whether you're trying to make your team great at React Native, you're trying to get a good base starting point for your React Native developers to work in, or you just want help building the best possible experience for mobile, there is no better team to reach out to than Infinite Red. Check them out now at soidiv.link/infinite. Now that that's all handled, I want to talk about two companies that you might have seen on this channel before. Those companies are Depot.dev and Blacksmith.sh. If you haven't seen me mention either of these companies before, it's because you're running a really sketchy extension called Sponsor Block. I would recommend turning it off at least for this channel because we put a ton of effort into finding sponsors that are actually relevant to you guys. You're not going to see random VPNs here. You're going to see companies that I actually work with and believe in and build my own stuff on top of. And if you are doing real CI work and you missed my previous ads for Blacksmith and Depot, you've probably now lost hundreds of dollars because of it. Because these guys will make your services build way, way faster. Depot is focused on both Docker images and GitHub Actions, making both comically fast. They were able to increase post-hogs build speeds for their Docker image by over 37x. That's pretty nuts. That's a lot of time that they were spending before waiting, over 2 hours. That is now under 5 minutes. They do this with a handful of different things. It's a combination of caching, faster CPUs, keeping the drives right next to the machine the code is running on, and also just writing not shit code. Blacksmith is very similar in this regard. You turn it on with a one-line change in your existing GitHub action. You change it from running on Ubuntu latest, which is an image that would by default run on the actual cloud that Azure is hosting. Well, GitHub is hosting on Azure. But now you can just swap it with Blacksmith for vCPU with an Ubuntu image, and now it's running on Blacksmith instead, as long as you've configured it with your existing GitHub account. Not very hard to do, and the results are hilarious. It is so much faster. Another crazy thing that Blacksmith did that just shows how decrepit the Actions platform is built actual observability for it. When I see this dashboard, it just amuses me because there is no real insights on GitHub Actions. If some of them are failing, you don't know where or how often. You go manually comb through the log and maybe find something useful, but you can barely even search your Actions runs. There is no concept of like useful data or observability in those unless you roll it yourself or you use Blacksmith. These companies are just crushing GitHub. It's insane that Microsoft has put no effort whatsoever into Actions since they acquired GitHub and forced them to rebase them on top of Azure workflows. And it makes sense that they're falling apart. Azure's cloud is way more expensive and way worse than almost any other option. You could literally just take the boxes that you're running, deploy them on AWS instead, save 30 to 40% of the cost, and have things that run faster. The reason that all of these companies were able to spin up and make something better than GitHub Actions is because GitHub Actions are uniquely shit. They are really, really bad. And it sucks to sit here and say this because I know they're not being funded properly. I have been on pretty good record that the team is half the size it was before because they've slowly just been cut down and down. That said, there are still 60 people plus on it, and those 60 people need to do their goddamn jobs because the platform is falling apart. It's so bad. It's so bad. Just to showcase one of the many problems that I've been hearing about with GitHub Actions, you aren't billed for the amount of time that your action runs for. That might sound insane. The pause was for dramatic effect. It's because it actually is fucking insane. The thing that you're billed for is the number of minutes, rounded up. So if you have an action that takes, 15 to 20 seconds, you're paying for the whole minute. Or you can go use a competent platform like Depot or Blacksmith where they're billing you upon the time that you're actually using. Crazy, I know. Absurd that they are half the price and you get 4 times to 30 times the speed. What? Yeah, they should just buy either of them. Regardless, they bill for the actual time used. And what do those bills look like, might you ask? Let's take a look at the pricing on Blacksmith. The default pay-as-you-go plan is 0.4 cents per minute. But that's just one of the many runners that they have available. They also have an ARM runner, which gets down to 0.25 cents per minute run. That's a really, really good deal, especially when you add the 3,000 free minutes a month they're giving you. Except for the fact that there is now this new ransom fee, this new troll toll, this new tax for daring to use a platform that is more competent than what GitHub has built. 0.2 cents per minute fee to GitHub to use a 0.25 cents per minute platform from our friends over at Blacksmith. What? Yeah. I don't know what to say here other than this is fucking pathetic. That's what it is. It almost seems like they strategically picked the price based on how their competitors are priced, but I happen to know that is not the case because they actually put all of the pricing for all of the things that exist on their platform down here. And here we can see that the cost of a single core Linux Slim box per minute rate is 0.2 cents per minute. The percentage change is 0 because they're not lowering the price here. They are lowering the price for the 2 core boxes, for the Windows boxes, and for the Mac boxes. And they are doing this, in their own words, by subsidizing the cost with this new ransom fee. It's also apparently how they're justifying giving free access to Actions to open source projects. That's your marketing budget, you stupid fucks. I've never seen a company in this position so terribly mismanaged. And the worst part is we don't even have anyone to bitch at. Like, everyone goes after Jared, which I understand because he is now like the public-facing person. Like, I know that Primeagen tagged him in when he was complaining about these changes. Well, not him, but Tom did. And then Prime asked for some assistance. And since Jared is now an employee at Microsoft, he has to do the Microsoft employee thing of a giant wall of text that doesn't say anything. I don't blame Jared for this, and I really hope none of you do either, because there is no person to blame, because GitHub no longer has a CEO. And this is the problem. None of this was a choice made by some higher up evil person at Microsoft saying, we want to squeeze pennies out of people. They're probably only going to make a few thousand to a few $100,000 a month extra as a result of these bullshit changes. They're doing this because they're bad at their jobs and they're wrong, but not because any one person sucks, but because there is no person steering the ship. If there's no captain at the helm of a ship, you don't blame random crewmates when it crashes. This ship is just floating around at sea right now, and it's not doing anything useful. If Actions was a good platform, I would probably shut my face and pay the fee, but it sucks. The only reason we stick with it, despite having better runners, is because it's a standard. The existence of these shit YAML files that vaguely describe work that needs to be done before we're allowed to merge code is awful, but it works. And at the very least, it integrates decently well with GitHub. But there are so many problems with it that we've already seen people moving off. Our friends over in the Zig world made a very big, explosive move away from GitHub just a few weeks ago because of all the problems they were having with Actions and how it was ruining the contribution experience for people trying to maintain Zig. And I fully understand why they would leave. They're also the ones that brought up the safe sleep thing that exploded a few weeks ago. It's absurd. And the joke here, while not true, I see why you would feel this way. Someone told the C-level exec about safesleep.sh, and when we saw a bug, they saw a feature. Yeah, since the boxes were running at full CPU intensity for way longer than they probably should have, they wanted to bill for that. No, that's not what happened here. What happened here was GitHub Actions, the team, doesn't have enough funding or enough resources to do things, allegedly. And as a result, they want to make sure they don't lose too much money, customers, and opportunity with people leaving. And there is a real cost to the way that they've implemented things, such that a third-party runner is still probably costing the money. It genuinely wouldn't surprise me if they were running one of these slim one-core boxes to check the current status of the job when you run it externally, and that's why they're charging this much. I do honestly believe that their architecture is that fucking bad and stupid. Yeah, that's the point we're at here. And this is my problem with the current era of GitHub. They can't decide if they want to be the arena, or if they want to compete in the arena, or if they want to ignore the arena entirely. They have been sitting and letting Actions rot for years now. It is a dying, decrepit, shit platform that we've all stuck with because there wasn't really anything else. And the moment people, while still building into the standard, mind you, none of things I showed aren't built on top of Actions. Both Depot and Blacksmith are built to integrate Actions as easily as possible while also offering better solutions for building Docker images and whatnot. These platforms are building around GitHub and the shit standard that they produced with Actions in their workflows. And now they have a massive incentive to leave the shit standard behind. They can build their own integration using webhooks instead, because we all know how reliable GitHub's webhooks are. Joke if you don't actually know they are. The point I'm trying to make here is that we have been building around this standard because even if it was shit, even if it wasn't maintained, even if it just kind of sat there and the official platform for it was garbage, we could build solutions on both sides. We can make tools to make it easier to maintain our actions as developers trying to structure them. We can make generic actions, and honestly, we can use AI to generate these shit YAML files, which makes it a lot less painful to do. And we can use platforms like Depot and Blacksmith to make running those actions significantly less painful. Well, we could. And I guess we still can. To be very clear, I'm not saying this means we shouldn't use Depot or Blacksmith. I would argue the opposite. The incentive to use platforms like this is stronger than ever. In the moment that they expose opportunities for us to define workflows without having to use the action standard, we should probably take advantage of that because, Actions is shit. It is awful. And I no longer feel like I have to defend it simply because it's a standard, because it's a standard that costs money to use. If your repos are not public and you're using the GitHub Actions standard, you're now paying a ransom fee to GitHub for permission to touch a shit YAML file. The shit YAML file was justifiable when it was a standard everyone could use and build into, even if they weren't choosing to use GitHub's actual action runner platform. But now that you have to pay the same fee regardless, there's no reason for us to stick with it at all. I genuinely believe that the stupid fucking post they never should have made is the death nail in the coffin that has been slowly getting more and more rancid every day. And it sucks. I want GitHub to win. So much of my life, so much of my career, so many of the people who are important to me, so many of the projects that defined the trajectory of my life all happened on GitHub. It is such an important platform. And to watch it slowly die because all the people who care gave up and left, and all the people who don't care are scared of losing their jobs, it's just pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. It's hard to even fathom that there are people at GitHub who write code, because nothing they ship makes any sense. The platform is egregiously slow. Actions is a shit standard. All of these changes are just making life worse. And we're on Copilot version 52 that is still worse than what was made by everybody else since. Reminder that Copilot had a 2-year lead over Cursor and they still lost. Yeah. I don't have anything else to say myself, so let's just go through some of the funny tweets that I saw about this. Here's Mitchell, the guy who made Terraform and a lot of the cool stuff at HashiCorp. There's a lot of levers that corporate leadership can pull, especially one as large and well-funded as GitHub. I don't have full visibility into the internal decision-making, of course, but I believe they pulled the wrong lever today at the wrong time. Yep, because nobody knows what levers to pull because nobody knows what the fuck developers want. Mitchell had a follow-up after this. I think in a moment when GitHub's reputation amongst devs is at an all-time low, making the policy change to charge for self-hosted runners in any scenario instead of making other technical changes to make GitHub runners more attractive will go down as a very bad move. I think we've already proven that now. They have chosen to not compete and not to support competition, but to charge people who dare look at better options. This is like if somebody wore a Hollister shirt into a Walmart that they got charged for using something better. It's insane. Gurgley responded as well, saying, "This is true. GitHub's reputation seems to be slowly but surely going down. Just 4 years ago, they were years ahead of anybody with Copilot. Cursor didn't launch until 2 years after the Copilot beta. Today, as competitors zoom past GitHub and Copilot, GitHub is too busy pissing off devs. For what? Actually, though. Most of the comms have claimed that this change doesn't affect almost anyone, even the official announcement here. The vast majority of customers will not see a change in their bills, and Actions will remain free in public repos. Okay, cool. Then why are they doing this? If supposedly this will barely affect anybody, why are they setting their brand perception on fire for no fucking reason? Great question, Corey. I hope we get an answer someday. I was touching on this one earlier, and I didn't really finish the thought, so I'm going to here. A lot of people were moving off of GitHub Actions because they would bill you for a full minute, even if you used 15 seconds. And that's a huge savings when you leave the platform and go to something like Blacksmith or Depot that actually bills you fairly with actual observability and logs about what's going on there. That benefit goes away when you're charged 0.2 cents per minute, or in this case, per action, regardless. So if your options were spend 0.2 cents using this for 20 seconds, you're paying 3 times more there than you would somewhere else that bills you more fairly. But now you're paying the fee on top for the other place plus the 0.2 cents because GitHub is just tagging it on at that 1 minute mark. Even if your job takes 5 seconds to run, you're paying that same amount. Insane. You're now effectively being punished for making a job that is efficient. And if you have lots of different jobs in your repo and you don't want them to run when you do something like a markdown file change, you can go put a special path in all of those actions that says if none of the real source files changed, skip. But now they all still have to run, and you're still paying these annoying-ass fees every time any change ships, even if none of the code changed, because GitHub didn't make a competent platform. If GitHub was charging us for using the platform as intended, that would be one thing. GitHub charging us for having to work around their shit platform is not reasonable at all. It's fucking insane, and it's going to drive so much bad sentiment as it already has started to. I want to end on this post from Kyle, who is the CEO over at Depot. GitHub's probably not the same one we all grew up with throughout our careers. Their announcement about charging a control plane fee for self-hosted runners feels like a nail in the coffin. It impacts all self-hosted runners, not just Depot or its competitors, but everyone. What's next? Control plane fees for syncing your source code? I'm disappointed by this change and its impact on the entire ecosystem. This is GitHub extracting more revenue from the ecosystem for a service that is slow, unreliable, and that GitHub has openly not invested in. We give a fuck about making your builds exponentially faster and cheaper. GitHub, frankly, doesn't care about either. If you prefer our methodology, you'll probably be interested in what we're doing next. Stay tuned at Depot. Yeah. It's one thing to stop caring about a product you shipped. It's a whole ass different thing to actively hurt people who want to do something better. GitHub built their entire business on the backs of open source. The whole point was to be a generous space for generous people in a generous world. And now, as Christmas is right around the corner, they are taking back all of that generosity and directly attacking the people who cared enough to make something better. Not only is this not the spirit of Christmas, this isn't the spirit of GitHub. This is not the GitHub that I was so excited to sign up for in the early 2010s when I was in college. This is not the GitHub that I excitedly shipped every single thing I worked on for decades at this point to. This is not the GitHub that made my career. This is GitHub, the Microsoft asset that is poorly managed, not actually led by anyone who understands anything, that we're watching slowly fall into teeny tiny pieces. I would love to be wrong about this. Hey, you, GitHub employee, you can make this better. Let your boss know and make sure they let their boss know that if this shit doesn't change, you're quitting. It's time to take a stand. If you actually care about building the best platform for code to be hosted in the world, you have to stand up and do it. And that's not what's happening right now. We are all watching it with our own eyes happening in real time. GitHub is not thriving, it's dying. And if you want to make sure the ship doesn't sink, you're running out of time, guys. You need to fix this. It's time for GitHub to have real leaders who actually understand developers and what they need take over. It's time to stop sinking and actually do something. It's either that or it's time for competition. And man, the moment there's a real competitor for GitHub, you can bet your ass I'm moving, because I am so done with this shit. Let me know what y'all think about this one. Am I overreacting to a small change, or is this actually the start of the end? I'm curious how y'all feel and if you're as willing as I am to take the move to something else, because I don't trust GitHub to take care of its developers anymore. Let me know how y'all feel. And until next time, peace nerds.